Monday NBA slate. Not a great day for me yesterday in the NFL. It's been 2 bad weeks in the NFL, but it was actually 2 bad weeks for NBA too. So after a couple really nice weeks, sort of going the other direction. So I want to try and right the ship this week. It is my birthday on Wednesday, so maybe I can get a little luck thrown my way. Sheets, how did you do yesterday, and what do you think about the slate?
Well, I mean, we had some really good calls, and I talked through the Kyron Williams play like really, really in depth. I didn't get enough of it. Some football stuff. I did want to bring up something. Again, for those of you who follow me on Twitter, I kind of caused a little bit of a ruckus today, but it's fine. If you're going to use the contest sims, like in general, remember that the overarching presumption is that your ownership projections are going to be good. Because if your ownership projections are not good, then you're comparing your lineups to a field of lineups that's not representative of what the field is going to play. So what that means is that the exact thing that you're trying to access is just a little bit flawed. And that's the thing that people don't exactly understand. And I, as you guys may or may not know, I do track ownerships of pretty much every sport. And yesterday, like in the NFL, the industry was like a colossal failure, and it's been like that for the last couple of weeks, like more so than usual. And I put like the big misses up on the site, and I put it on Twitter as well. And it's like really, really bad, the point is, and it wasn't just like one outlier projection. Again, I tracked like 8 or 9 like different models or whatever, and they were all like Jonathan Taylor, 30, 30, 32, 32, 32, 32, 31, 31, 31. It came at 17, right. And then everybody just presumed somehow that like these Houston guys are going to be low owned, right? And Tank Dell ended up like 36% owned or something.
I had those guys around 30. I had about 30.
Well, I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about the industry that everybody relies on, And somehow Jerome Ford, who was like 4% projected, people played him 15%. Now there's a reason for that underlies all this, and the reason why there's a lot of discrepancies now is in a weird way because of contest sims and because of the more advanced types of optimizers. Because the more advanced types of optimizers, and people are getting sharper, and they would like to go and fade stuff, right? So when they look at an ownership projection, they say, boy, I don't want to play Jonathan Taylor at 30%, so I don't play him. And that's why it comes down, And likewise, people will see that, a lot of people would see that, oh, Tank Dell is going to be only 15%. I'll pound him. So it goes to 30, and that kind of, everybody starts kind of leveling themselves. So the point is just be, listen, I am going to tout that if you're going to rely on ownership projections, that you use, like, especially with football, you probably use Goldies, because what he does is he literally aggregates the whole industry, and the more and the more input you get, the better. But the industry itself in football, it's really overall kind of poor. Now, I'm not saying it's easy. I don't say I could do it better, but I'm just saying that if you're going to overly rely on them and just get a hit like a contest sim button because of it, you're really barking up the wrong tree. You have to use a little bit of your noggin in this game. So that's pretty much all I had. And when it comes to NBA, as we go into NBA, it's very similar. Like NBA ownership projections are not easy. It's not easy to do, and so as a result, if you just like rely on the ownership projections and say, oh, it's this, so I can just play. Hey, these guys are projecting me 35%, so and I only have, I want to just ultra fade them, so I'll play 0. It ends up being 12. I mean, if you're just turning into a button pusher without any type of nuance, you're just kind of asking for trouble. Anyway, that was kind of my rant.
I agree with all that. I did think yesterday, and I think it'll be hard for some games going forward. I think yesterday was a particularly hard day to try to project. Basically,
tell me why. Why do you think so?
It was the thinnest of any of the chalk that we've seen from the NFL this season. Okay. And there was none of the actual like sure thing plays, pretty much anywhere that you could get to comfortably. And even the sure thing plays didn't quite hit for stuff, Diggs and Brown and whatnot were fine. But like, I just thought it was a really tough slate to try to project. So, but I hear what you're saying overall. It is really, it is tough, and it's hard when you build based on the fact of what these projected ownerships are. But at the same time, it is like you said, it's a tough job, and I do think that you're right that yesterday things did work. I was surprised by a million different ownerships, both high and low, because it was very different than what I was getting. So I hear you. All right. Let's get into it. Let's pull up your screen and we'll go game by game today. We'll do our best with the, remember with early projections, they're going to be mostly, ownership and stuff like that is going to be mostly projection based.
And more than anything else, this is process, and people ask us what the process is. And unfortunately, process number one is figuring out what the slate freaking looks like. You know what I mean? Like, and even if it doesn't turn out to look like that, that's fine. You have to get a sense for seeing what the slate looks like and analyzing it as it is. And I guess it's sort of healthy to project possibly what could happen, and what could impact the slate. Like, for example, we look at this slate right now. Like, I listen, it's 12:07 p.m. right? So I currently see value as being just awful, on this slate.
Right.
And yet, some guys are coming in 40% owned because they're the best of the awful alternatives. So that's a context of the slate that you need to kind of just take a snapshot of, and then as the course of the day emerges and all guys get ruled out, when Anthony Davis and LeBron and Embiid all get ruled out, whatever it is, then we know that whatever value shows up is going to probably be an amazing piece of value.
Right. Absolutely. Well, let's start it off with the Wizards and Portland and Indiana. I was on a different game, so why don't you jump in on this one?
So I presume most Indiana games, this totals 300. I don't know exactly what it is, but it's funny. I actually looked at Tyrese. Don't really look at game logs too much, but I looked at Tyrese Halliburton's game logs. They're pretty absurd.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the most absurd piece are these assist numbers. I mean, they're just beyond. How do you get over 15 assists 3 out of 4 games? It's and get over 30 real life points in all 3 of those games. That's putting your hands on the ball quite a bit. You know what I mean?
He was the first guy ever. Was he the second player ever to have 30 and 15 and 10 back to? I don't remember exactly.
Oh, is that right? It's certainly
one of whatever he did. It was. I just saw a little blurb somewhere about it.
What that means is the ball is just in his hands all the time on a team that just runs up and down the floor. Okay. So as far as that stuff goes, I guess that Halliburton is in play every week until he's 15,000, I suppose. Is he of the same class as Embiid and Jokic? My answer right now is no. I don't think so. But certainly a couple of more of these 70 balls, and he's gonna push his luck in there. Now, as far as value goes, okay, Miles Turner looks decent enough at 7,200, I guess. Then you have, I guess, Malcolm Brogdon, I guess, looks okay. Those would be, I guess, my top 2, and then Jalen Smith, I suppose. So Jalen Smith, Turner, and Jalen Smith and Turner, I guess, would be my two top values, and Brogdon, I guess, in Portland.
Yeah, for the life of me, I cannot understand why Jalen Smith is projecting well. I'm trying to understand.
But he's not. You know what I mean? He's only projecting 5x as far as
right. But even that, this guy, I mean, he hit that number once this season, I think. They've got more. I mean, if Neesmith is out again, maybe Jalen Smith, I guess, becomes in play. But I mean, he's had more than 20 fantasy points. Don't get me wrong. But I mean, you're looking at games where he might play 12 minutes. I don't know. I'm certainly not going to play a chalky version of it. By the end of the day, it probably ends up unowned, and maybe I'll do something with it.
Oh, wait, before you get on, I'd like to shout out for both of us, by the way.
Yeah.
Okay. I would like to reiterate. Okay. The Buddy Hield experience. Okay. Let's talk about this for just a second.
We got that one right.
Yeah. So I want to talk about this for a second because this is more educational. So he was coming off of a game where he was 7 for 12 from 3, followed the game before that where he was 6 for 6 from 3. So he was 13 for 18 from whatever, and he was 4 billion% owned. Okay. And what we discussed, and we were both totally in agreement with this, was look, he could certainly do that again, but these are the types of guys you simply cannot play at high ownership, right? And I will say this, that you might say, well, he only played 28 minutes and it was blood. No, he was busting the whole game.
Yep.
Right? He had like 1.5 fantasy points at the half, I think. So
Yep.
I'm not saying they couldn't do another 50 or whatever, but those are exactly the types of guys that you need to fade as strong.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, but in general, I do like this game. I think my favorite play on Indy is probably Bruce Brown, which feels kind of nasty. We'll see if Neesmith plays later on. Maybe I'll open up a little bit more. I think Brogdon going back to Indy as chalk is a good play, actually. I do worry about this game. I mean, we know Indy's going to score like 130 points, almost guaranteed. Is there a way Portland can keep up with them? I don't think it's all that likely, but I think it's, again, Brogdon, Ayton, Grant, all of those guys are totally fine, and as is Scoot Henderson. But Brogdon would be my preference here in this game. As of right now, I would have, he's the only guy I would come away from this game with an actual like priority tag on. But I think that this whole game is very stackable, and it's just a matter of, do you want to embrace the possibility that it's sort of a blowout, and that even if it's not a full-on blowout, Indy just plays. They can play so deep if they want to, that you might just not get the full minutes from the studs you want. So that's where I'm not as high on Halliburton, but I do like the Brogdon going back to Indy thing.
Well, how about like the full-on? How about a back-to-back revenge tour for Malcolm Brogdon? Like,
Right.
Right. Yesterday he went into Milwaukee. He was normally not the guy that does this, right? But he went into Milwaukee and showed out, and then back-to-back coming back to Indiana. Are we sure he plays? How about that?
That's the real question. Is he even going to play? So yeah, it's everything feels a little iffy in this game, including the projections and the ownership early on. So I do have it as a game that I want to try and go after, but I think I might look elsewhere if these ownership stays true at all. But Brown and Brogdon are the two best plays, I think, at the moment in this game. All right, what do we got next for you? It's LA and Philly. Oh.
Well, right, it's the same problem, So yeah, I'd love to play Embiid. That would be nice. Projecting for 60 fantasy points, I'd love to play Jokic. You know what I mean? On Denver, I like to access these points, but currently the value is not exactly there. So it comes up with these questions of, do we just like eat the terrible value in the name of getting the 60 to 70 out of Embiid, or do you just go mid-range? And I unfortunately don't know the answer to that right now. But listen, Embiid certainly looks like a really, really good play. On the other side, as far as like the spend-ups go, I can't really separate between LeBron and AD. They both look the same to me, so I would defer to you on that. And as far as value goes, I got very, very little, if anything, for this game.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time with this one myself. Look, D'Angelo Russell is a reasonable price. So is Austin Reeves. I would probably lean Reeves over Russell. I think that Davis, I would probably lean Davis over LeBron here. It's pretty close between those two, but maybe because he's center only, I would lean LeBron if I had to pick one, but I don't. There's not much value as of right now. If it opens up, I do think Embiid is, an excellent play as always. I mean, I know Jokic had the one ejection where he only played 15 minutes. But it's pretty interesting that Embiid and Jokic are averaging almost the same amount of fantasy points per game, and Jokic is 1,100 more. And I get it, but I also think that that's, it's an interesting time to take a low-owned Embiid shot. It's just a matter of, can you find a way to afford it? Other than that, I think Maxey, I think this is actually a really good matchup for Maxey. I don't think I'm going to end up getting to him as of right now, but it just really depends on what kind of what kind of value opens up. So as of right now, probably just Austin Reeves or nothing else in this game for me. All right, Washington, Detroit.
So you weren't around for this because it was Saturday NBA.
Yeah.
But so Washington was playing somebody, and Demi Avdija showed up on the injury report with about an hour before lock, as questionable. So people were starting to speculate that maybe Bilal Coulibaly would be a better play, maybe Poole would be a better play, whatever it is. And then about 10 minutes, 20 minutes before lock, they announced that Avdija was in, and they play everybody normally, whatever. And Jordan Poole was 40% owned, and 5 minutes after lock, they ruled him out.
Oh yeah, I did see that though.
No shame, just no shame at all. So for those of you that had that experience, listen, nobody to blame. It just, just the NBA is screwed up like that. But then again, they said, listen, if he went through warm-ups and then decided he couldn't play, I mean, I guess what are you going to do? But anyway, the top value I have overall on the slate are both coming from this game, and neither of them are that great. But you have Jaden Ivey at 5,400. I have him projecting at about 30, I guess. And then Duran. But I guess if we're going to start with a middling type build, and this is the same thing as last time this was the case, is that I think Cade Cunningham is really just a nice place to start. He was good enough in his last game where I needed him. One of those Harlem Globetrotter games. Yeah, the Indiana game. Yeah. He only got 41. It's really 31 real life points. Only 41.
Yeah, it's a little disturbing.
That was a little disturbing, but I guess the 4 turnovers affect him. That's kind of a weird line. I don't know.
Do you want to know what's really interesting? Just to touch on what you said earlier, though, about Halliburton. Yeah. Would you be surprised to know that Cade Cunningham is he's significantly higher usage than Tyrese Halliburton?
Well, yeah, but he just can't shoot.
Right. No, but also it's also something that Halliburton is not a very high usage guy, which is the strangest thing. But he does everything. It's just very quick decisions. He doesn't mess around with it. You know what I mean? Anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I like Cunningham, and then there's Duran and Ivy, I guess, in Detroit, and then Washington. You just go back to Poole and what's his name and Kuzma, I suppose. I tell you, the more I'm looking at this slate, I think I know what I want to do. We'll get to it in a minute at the end of the slate, actually. We'll get to it at the end of the slate. But I think all these guys are fine. None of the value looks great. It'll be a middling type build, so I guess guys like Cunningham and Kuzma make sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure on Kuzma.
Right, exactly. That's all I got. That's all I got. Sure, that's all I got today.
That's sort of where I'm at too. I think Kuzma is probably my favorite piece from Washington, but honestly, if Poole plays, it's not a bad idea just to go back to him. I actually don't think he'll be his own because people will, they'll remember that one.
Oh yeah. Oh yes, they will.
They definitely will. And I kind of like Gafford here. The matchup's tough, but they're going to have to keep him on the court. And I like Duran, so I'm kind of liking too many centers. So I would lean Duran as like one of the stronger plays in this game. Kuzma, Avdija, fine, but I probably would actually lean Poole just because I think he'll end up lower owned. You're going to have crazy ownership on Ivy if the slate locked right now, but I'm not sure it'll stay quite so high. It'll still probably be pretty high. I love the Cade idea. I think it's a really good call. But Cade, Duran, and Ivy are all, I think, terrific plays. And then you get into the weird people are going to play Isaiah Livers. That's probably bad.
I think so.
Yeah, it's just a weird value that people are trying to be kind of desperate for. But I wouldn't mind if you wanted to go. I would rank them Ivy, Cade, Duran, Stewart. Thompson, then Stewart. And I think all of those guys are actually completely in play. So I'm happy to get some exposure to this game. I'd like to know whether Jordan Poole's playing before I decide what to do. Interestingly enough, nobody really got there without Jordan Poole the other day, right? I looked around, I looked at the box score, and I didn't notice anything.
It was harsh.
Yeah. So kind of weird. So anyway, all this to say that I think this game is very stackable, and I especially like the Detroit side, but I wouldn't mind running back a Kuzma or Poole on the Washington side.
Any other Detroit stuff like Alec Burks or giving Kevin Knox another shot or something, or not really?
It just feels like, if they start him, I don't really know. It's just pure speculation, I guess. And they tend to play the guys they start at least significant minutes. Ship My Money came in first and second on Saturday, the 18th. Yeah. So, I expect most people who max enter to be in, I don't expect them to have just one first place lineup. They usually have a top 10.
Well, if you don't have Poole, you know what I mean? On a day where we're 40% zeros, if you max enter, you're in good shape there. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You're going to be in really good shape.
Absolutely.
He's not going to, even if he has 40% Poole, you know what I mean? Yeah. And he's got 60% nut, you know what I mean? Nut lineups pretty much.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. I like what Eric Froelich was saying about the 6 for 6 from Buddy Hield, where he only had 30 fantasy points. It is crazy to see that kind of stuff. Anyway, all right, we can move on to what do you have next? New Orleans, Utah. Why is this game? Oh, it's not so early. It's just
before I do that, I have to I have to shout out since Slick shouted out "Shit My Money." I want to shout somebody out from this chat. I would like to shout out PK Nugent. Okay.
Oh yeah, he won something.
Yeah, he won his first satellite into like the 333 or something like that, and he posted on Twitter. Listen, he's in here a lot. He's not Adam Scher playing 150 lineups in the whatever. He's a fan of the game and he's trying to get better. And dude, I mean, like let me know when you're going to be firing that 333. I'll totally sweat that. So good for you, and keep on keeping on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, New Orleans, Utah. So I guess this one is Markkanen being questionable. That's something.
Yeah.
I mean, that's something, and it's also something considering it's a 9 o'clock game. So that's something you could probably do. That would be an indicator you should probably push forth to later games if possible. Maybe making Jokic a better play than Embiid, if that makes any sense. I don't know, because of Markkanen. Aside from that, I mean, like I said, unfortunately, it's the same type of thing. So Zion 8,700. I'm sure it's going to be the same Kuzma. Sure, right? It's like the same thing, I guess. Ingram, sure. I mean, it's like the sure slate, I suppose, unless someone gets ruled out. Sexton, no, I'm not doing that. Just not a lot unless Markkanen gets ruled out, I guess.
Yeah, and just for what it's worth, Clarkson is also questionable here, so that's a pretty big one.
Okay.
And we may not know. This is the argument for waiting. Unfortunately, you're only waiting for 2 games, so it's kind of weird if you don't get what you want there. Also, Walker Kessler's back now, so there's more bodies for whatever that's worth. But I like the New Orleans side of this a lot. I think I could definitely get behind Zion here. I think I prefer Zion to Ingram, but I actually think they're both okay. I like Zion actually. And I think if you're going to use some thin chalk that you want to use as a placeholder, why not use Jose Alvarado? Like that guy is like, he's good point per minute. He's always going to play minutes. He played 22 minutes in his last game, and he should be trending more in that direction. And if we can expect low 20s minutes from him, I'm happy to say that I think he's being a little bit under projected today. I'm not going to say that he's going to put up, he's projected to play 20 minutes. He put up 30 fantasy points in the last game in 23. I think that's an interesting piece of value if you wanted to sort of have like a placeholder value and play some of the later games. So favorites being Zion. And then I guess I'd consider Ingram, but I probably wouldn't end up getting there. I think Alvarado would be my next favorite. And I do think Dyson Daniels, they really like the defense that he brings. Just remember, this is a really good matchup when you get to play Utah for New Orleans. So you do want to attack that. On the other side, I just am not finding it's just so hard to analyze without Clarkson or Markkanen. If Markkanen's out, John Collins and Kelly Olynyk become much more interesting. If Clarkson is out, then Keontae George, Colin Sexton, and THT are all much more interesting. So, but still, nobody I would quite go to like say, okay, you're going to lock that guy. But I do expect Utah to be the lowest owned team on the slate. So trying to force someone in is not the worst idea in the world from a team that's going to be completely unowned in a good pace matchup. All right. Denver and LA.
Yeah, so I think it was Friday, I guess. I cashed in like one of the big buy-ins, and one of the restraints on that lineup was Reggie Jackson. I played him at on both FanDuel and DraftKings at both big buy-ins. And let's just say that the 10 fantasy points he got, it was like a very, very generous 10.5. Like he was very lucky to squeak out the 10.5. I think he was literally negative 0.5 at the half. And sometimes you get the Reggie Jackson experience.
Yeah,
that's just the way that goes. And of course, 2 days later, there you have it. Like 2 days later, 7 for 10, 3 for 3 from 3, 6 assists, 7 rebounds, 40 fantasy points, and away we go. Right? Okay, so he's probably a little bit too expensive, but he is going back to LA. He's on the Clippers. I'll just kind of tilt and throw that out there. But let's go back. Jokic, very, very good play. I probably prefer him to Embiid. And I keep trying to make some of these Clippers work between Harden and Paul George and Kawhi. But, it's funny. It's like they're just good enough team players together, I guess, that they just don't. Nobody really just smashes, you know. So I don't know, but it's a small slate. Maybe try one of them. I don't even know which is my preferred. I guess this has to be. It has to be anything. I mean, Harden or George or Kawhi, have them all rated the same. They're all going to be at 10% owned, maybe. I don't know. That's pretty much all I have from this game.
Yeah, this is a weird one. I just want to point out that this game, I don't know what's going on. I'll just tell you right now, Vegas thinks like Jokic is sitting or something, because there's no way in the world the Clippers should be a 5.5 point favorite.
Well, this is something we've talked about for like.
It is the back-to-back, I understand, but this isn't exaggerated for a back-to-back.
No, what I'm saying is you've been saying that Vegas has been over projecting the Clippers for like, several times.
Yeah, I was right all but two. Like,
I forget you were right. I'm just saying that it's not, this is a thing. You know what I mean? That your view of the Clippers is different than Vegas in general.
Well, I don't think Vegas is respecting the Clippers. I think this is a someone sitting line.
Okay.
It's for the Clippers to be 5.5 points favorites over the best team in the NBA. I understand that they've struggled on the road. I understand not the same without Jamal Murray, but still, this is pretty egregious. I understand it's a back-to-back for the Nuggets, but it's a 3 and 4 nights for the Clippers. So I'm just throwing out there that they are acting. Vegas is acting to me like one of
that is very odd, isn't it?
Yeah, Gordon or MPJ will sit. I would be surprised if none of them sit.
I'm looking at this. I mean, I was literally, when you told me that, I'm like, oh, this is just like Bobby being whatever. I figured that like I swear to you, I thought it was a 4%, maybe a 20% chance it was a misprint. I was going to come here and say, dude, again, you're looking at the wrong thing. Nuggets are 5.5 point favorite. You know what I mean? And I pulled it up, and the Clippers are in fact 5.5 at home over Denver. And I don't get it either.
At least Gordon is sitting, if nothing else. So I would backload based on I'll trust the Vegas line to assume that. I don't know if they're going to sit Jokic on the back-to-back, but they might. I mean, we'll hear something throughout the day that's going to be somebody's going to be questionable, and I'm just going to assume that person is very likely to be out.
Well, I will say this, and this is, you guys know me pretty well, is that if in fact everybody is in, then the Clippers are just a freaking lock. You know what I mean? Like, they just are. It's the way it is. So this is what I think I want to do on this slate. Now, again, this is depends. Listen, presuming there's no news and marketing's in and this, and all the Nuggets guys are in. I think I want to try this on a slate where there's like really very little as far as good plays go. Let's say it what it is. Probably rates to be sort of a low scoring slate as a result of that. I think I'm going to try to just make 5 like game stacks. You know what I mean? And just really just overstack and just play for overtime in one of these games. Not one of them, like all the games. And play like 2 versus 2, 2 versus 2, 2 versus 2, 2 versus 2 at least in all of the games, and just hope that one of them just goes to overtime and goes off. Because if I just try and rely on these like single individual plays and don't take advantage of correlation in some way, I don't know. It's just I don't see much of an edge there. So I think that's going to be my idea. Now again, it's hard to play in some like, what am I going to do in the Laker game? Play Davis and Embiid? Actually, you could. That would be interesting. Imagine if you do play Davis and Embiid and the game does go to overtime somehow. But you could certainly do that in the Washington game. I think that's very stackable, as you mentioned. Certainly do in the Portland game. And hey, you know what? That Alvarado thing that you mentioned, I mean, you get some stuff going on with that. I mean, you could play a couple of guys in that game, and you could certainly do something with Harden and Jokic. You want to play a lineup with Harden and Jokic or something like that? That could go off. So I think that's overall what I would do if the slate locked in a half an hour, which it does not.
Right. And we got Jolly in here saying that the Clippers are starting to gel. Let's be very careful when we start saying somebody's gelling because they beat the Spurs twice. The Spurs do they still have the worst record in the NBA? So the only real win they've had is the Mavs, and that was a good win. No question. Oh, I know they beat the Rockets at one point too, but they still, they've won 4 out of 7, but 2 of those are against the Spurs, and they've also still they're 4 and whatever. What are they, 4 and 7 with? I guess that's what they are with Harden. Clippers do not have 4 superstars. That's absolutely false, by the way. They have like, I don't know if they all combined to be like 2, but there's certainly not 4 superstars on the. Yeah, that's a ridiculous thing to say. Sorry to say right now to say the Clippers have 4 superstars. I'm pretty sure when you have 2 guys who 2 of those stars who not one other team in the league wants them to play for them, it's kind of hard to call them superstars. Yeah, I would be shocked if somebody doesn't sit for the Nuggets. That's my take from this slate, and I think you backload the slate. I think you try the Alvarado thing. I think you play it right now because Aaron Gordon's the only one questionable. Play it as if he's out. That means probably more Michael Porter Jr. It might mean something for either Strother or Christian Braun by the end of the day, but I need to. It's really hard to know this early without projections. And maybe play one of these fringy Clippers, like you mentioned, that maybe play a Harden in the late game. I do want some exposure to this late game. You could use Daniel Tice as the piece of thin value that may turn into better value. Stuff like that is the way that I would be looking at this slate, because I do think there's enough information. But I think if you combine some of these late plays with, maybe an early mini stack of either Washington, Detroit, or Portland, Indy, that's sort of the way that I would look at this slate right now. But my guess is in the next couple of hours, once we hear about morning shoot-arounds, we'll get a better feel for who's going to play. And anybody who's trying to compare the Clippers with the Nuggets should just realize these are two teams in completely different stratospheres. All right. Pacers line moved from -13 to -12. Maybe Brogdon's in. Maybe he is. We'll find that stuff out in the next few hours. That's the good news.
Sheetbot said true DFS Goldies NHL projections
you'll
have been
be good to
updated.
be live with me at 6, right?
I will be there at 6.
All right, so we'll be live at 6. I will post all my content for this week and for NFL and my NBA stuff later today to have a little more time, not to just have to post it in the Discord, because it was not such a busy family day today. So, Sheets, anything else before we get out of here?
Yeah. So, what do you want to do about the football?
We can just go live. You want to do live later?
What time? Like after basketball locks at 7? You mean?
Yeah, something like that.
Okay, sounds good.
Sounds good.